When the sun comes up on America, across open fields, small towns, and city streets, a new day begins. And here, we rise with it. This is where hard work meets headlines, where truth matters, and America wakes up informed.
An interesting week.
They all are.
This is your country. This is your morning. This is Daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. America, let's do it together.
Love you, Ivy.
Love you too.
And it starts right now.
Grab your coffee. Let's kick it off. Let's get this done. A lot to cover here today as we start another brand new day in a very busy week. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, the House has passed legislation to kick migrants out of the country that have been caught committing fraud here and stealing taxpayer money. 186 Democrats voted no. Number two, the First Lady is calling for ABC to terminate its deal with the deeply hateful Jimmy Kimmel and his deeply offensive remark about her glowing like a widow-to-be. It's not about free speech, it's about common decency. And number three, as I told you, the Democrats would barely take a breath before they started spewing hateful anti-America, anti-Trump rhetoric, and boy, was I on the money. These people who either openly hope for this or secretly dream of the President of the United States getting murdered are right back to spreading their hateful, dishonest narrative about President Trump. And worse, about his supporters and their country and their own neighbors. And this morning, I'm going to give you an education on who they are, what they say, and what they really want. And for many of them, it's to burn the Constitution and put you under their heels because it's about control. And they want to control the entire nation. They want to make it a one-party country. Let me give you examples because it is so reprehensible, it's hard to understand unless you actually see it and actually hear it. We're going to start with a pastor right after. This happened after the latest assassination attempt on the president on Saturday. This pastor, in front of his congregation, calling President Trump a fascist. Something's deeply wrong with these people. Listen.
The America they want to get back to is the Confederate States of America, not the United States of America. It's very important that even as we fight for justice, even as we protect each other from this fascistic movement, that we not do to them what they're doing.
Yeah. Let me explain something. It's not fascist, and he thinks that we want to return. Those that are not on the left want to return to the Confederate States of America. History lesson, it was the Republicans that fought Democrats to end slavery and save this country under the first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln. This is first-grade history. And yet, these Democrats are so full of hatred, they'll sit there right in a pulpit and lie like that. Here's another Democrat. This one's running for Congress in Georgia. He's smearing the president less than 24 hours after that assassination attempt. Check this one out.
Listen, we're going to hear about a lot of great issues tonight. Universal health care, affordable housing, better jobs, lower prices. And these are all important issues. But these are pipe dreams. These are never going to happen until and unless we rid ourselves of the cancer that is Donald Trump and the Trump administration. Every day, and in many ways, these people are breaking the law and violating our constitutional rights, and we don't have to put up with it.
Breaking our laws and attacking our constitutional rights. Which constitutional rights are under attack here? Calling for Jimmy Kimmel to be fired? It's not constitutional rights. There'd be a private company getting rid of a vile individual who's not funny and spreads hate and division in this country every night that he's on the air. Which one of your rights have been taken away from you since Donald Trump became president? I asked Democrats because I haven't lost any myself, and I'm not some special individual because I lean right, and I'm no member of any political party, never have been, never will be. Speaking of the Democrats, here is the leader of the Democrat Party, as far as anybody can tell right now, Hassan Piker. He's out there campaigning with Democrats like Abdul El Sayed, who's running for United States Senate in Michigan. He's been with this guy a bunch, has Hassan Piker. And here he is calling for killing, not deplatforming, not voting out, not eliminating through normal means, but calling for the killing of Republicans. Here it is.
If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott, okay? You wouldn't make Rick Scott, former governor of Florida, Rick Scott, you wouldn't make him the current, what is his current office? What is he? He's the Richard Lynn Scott is an American attorney, businessman, politician, Navy veteran, serving as the senior United States senator from Florida, a seat he has held since 2019. And also, I believe this past election cycle, he was literally the f***ing head of the, what was it, like the Senate committee or something?
Yeah. Kill Rick Scott. You see, it's not limited to Donald Trump. And it wasn't limited to Donald Trump for Cole Allen, who stormed into the party on Saturday night, not just to kill Donald Trump. That was his number one priority. But to kill as many people and as many members of the cabinet as possible. He had a manifesto. He traveled across the country. He brought weapons with him. He booked into the hotel the night before the event, the night before the shooting, pre-planned, premeditated, well thought out. A 31-year-old graduate of Caltech, an engineer, who went on to get a master's degree as well, a well-educated guy who's been so disturbed by the violent rhetoric that he thought he was going to be a hero. And on mainstream media, Ana Navarro is one of the most shrill, deeply disturbed people. And here she is just after the shooting on Saturday saying it's a good thing on the Twisted View. And the people in the audience applaud. It's shocking. Here it is.
But now that room was full of some of the most important political leaders in the country right now.
Right.
Now they know, they've lived it in their own flesh, the fear that our school children go through.
Yes.
Now they know what it's like to have to jump under a table the way that school children jump under a desk. And we are a country that is vulnerable to this. We have now seen shootings in malls, in churches, in temples, and Walmart.
Yes. We saw it
in
with the Republicans.
And so, I still don't understand how Congress took no action after Sandy Hook, after 20 children between the ages of 6 and 7 were killed. But maybe now that they have felt the fear themselves, they will do something.
But what I
on
don't
gun
understand
reform.
is how.
See, it's about taking your guns away. It's not about the fact that people like you, Ana Navarro, have thrown gas on that fire intentionally day after day on your program. Hateful rhetoric. He's Hitler. He's a fascist. He's destroying the Constitution. He's destroying democracy. He is an existential threat to the future of America. It's filth. And I'm just getting started because I'm going to just pull out the receipts one after another. Nice to see you today. And it's just one example after another. Like I said, I'm going to bring the receipts. I will not sit here and allow this vile rhetoric to be infused every day into the conversation, to throw gas on the political fire, to give people like Cole Allen the impression that somehow they're heroes because they're going to take down the American Hitler. That's what they believe. That's what's been instilled in them since probably grade school. If you want to know the sad fact, grade school, middle school, high school, reinforced and turning them into activists when they hit college. J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, standing by his reprehensible comments about President Trump after the assassination attempt, of course. Listen.
Some of your critics may point to what you said in the State of the State last year when you compared the Trump administration to the rise of Nazis. What would you say to that?
Well, Manu, remember what I was talking about was the fact that a constitutional republic was torn apart in 53 days in Germany in the 1930s, and that we need to watch out for that in this country. That is what I was talking about. And we've seen it, by the way, that speech was given in February of 25. I think over the last year, much of what I said has been proven to be true, that the institutions of this democracy are being attacked by the Republicans and by Donald Trump.
Really? What institutions, you slob? What institutions are being attacked? Name one. What rights have you lost? What freedoms have been taken away? What part of the Constitution has been lined out? None, of course. 53 days. How long has Donald Trump been in the White House? Just this term. Can you count? Mr. Pritzker, can you count? Hard to count with your head tucked up your rectum. How about disgraced former NBC talking head Chucky Todd pull out all the stops to blame Trump, of course, for being targeted for assassination? This guy got fired for good reason. And he used to be on television, NBC, every day, pretending to be nonpartisan. You tell me.
I'm not going to any more events where Trump's at him. I don't feel safe. Wherever Donald Trump
Chaos follows him.
Chaos follows him. And you are less safe, right? If you decide to go into his orbit, you have become less safe. He does not care about your safety. He's not going to protect you if you go into his orbit, because he's always going to protect himself first. He's more likely to throw you under the bus. He's more likely to have you be the target of Iranian assassins if you're John Bolton or Mike Pompeo. And he's going to pull any sort of federal support, right? You know, I think about when somebody using Donald Trump's words and actions targeted me and a bunch of other members of the press. You know who I didn't hear from?
Donald Trump.
Right. So the guy doesn't care when people commit violence in his name. He only cares when the violence is committed against him, and he does not see that he is a contributor to the atmospherics of the world we're living in right now.
Chuck Todd, how many times have you been shot at? Let's check the scoreboard. 0. How many times have you been attacked in public and beat up, Chuck Todd? Back to the scoreboard. 0. He's trying to do, what about me? It's not about you, Chuck. Nobody cares about you, Chuck. You're a bottom feeder. As evidence there. Oh, and back to what I was talking about a moment ago. In Michigan, Democrat Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed campaigning with the most vile representative of leftist ideas, Hassan Piker, who, while working out of the gym just a few days ago, had this to say.
What a day. What a productive day. Talked about Trump. Talked about Trump potentially dying. Did a speech at the Palestine People's Conference. Now we're out here with Senate hopeful Dr. Abdul El-Sayed getting the lift in. About to eat some kebabs. Excellent.
Wants Trump to die. And this guy is out on the campaign trail with Democrats, not just El-Sayed, by the way. He's been with a number of other candidates as well. He is the face of the Democrat Party, is Hassan Piker. But there is resistance to all of this garbage rising, and there are those among us who will not give this a pass for one more day. I'm one of them. This is not a both sides issue, from the shooting of Steve Scalise by a radical leftist to multiple attempts on President Trump's life to the murder of Charlie Kirk. We're done being quiet about any left-wing violence. I'm done. And Caroline Leavitt yesterday called the offenders out by name, including Pritzker. Here she is.
It's not just the media, it is the entire Democrat Party has made their pitch to voters across the country that Donald Trump poses an existential threat to democracy, that he is a fascist, and that they compare him to Hitler. I mean, these are despicable statements that the American people have been consuming for years. And so many mentally perturbed individuals are led to believe these words are truth and then are inspired to act on it. I have a whole host of examples that we can share with you after. It is pages and pages of major Democrat Party elected officials saying, such as Rep. Hakeem Jeffries just this month said, "We are in an era of maximum warfare everywhere all the time." Governor Josh Shapiro said heads need to roll within the administration. Senator Alex Padilla said people are, quote, dying because of fear and terror caused by the Trump administration. Senator Elizabeth Warren, President Trump is making the country look like a, quote, fascist state. Senator Adam Schiff saying President Trump using a dictator playbook. Senator Ed Markey calling President Trump a dictator, saying that this administration's actions are authoritarianism on steroids. Governor J.B. Pritzker, never before in my life have I called for mass protest disruptions. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace.
Yeah. I will not rest. I will not quit. I will never back down. I will never surrender. I would never allow my kids and grandkids to be subjected to this kind of vile political rhetoric from people that really are trying to destroy the Constitution, pack the Supreme Court, add 2 states, open our borders, and everything else. I will never surrender, and neither should you. I'll be right back. By the way, Florida getting underway with their redistricting efforts in earnest. The map has been revealed. It's a chance for Republicans to pick up 4 more red seats in Florida. And that is sailing through. The Supreme Court yesterday gave the green light to Texas, so that's good to go. Virginia, meanwhile, jammed up in court. They may or may not get their new districts to the ballot this November. We'll see. We'll see if the Supreme Court weighs in on that as well. Meanwhile, yesterday, as I mentioned off the top, the House passed a bill to deport illegal alien fraudsters and migrants who come here and cheat you out of your tax money to enrich themselves. The vote was 231 to 186. 186 Democrats voted no to deport people stealing from the taxpayers. 186 Democrats voted no to protect the American taxpayer from fraudsters who aren't even from here. Let that marinate for a moment. Now, I used to think that a mattress was just furniture until I got my ghost bed. We've had it for a few weeks now, and it has been absolutely terrific. It's what sleep is supposed to feel like. I feel great. Ghost Bed doesn't build mattresses like furniture. They build engineered sleep systems right here in America. The beds are serious health equipment designed for relief and recovery, not looks and not fluff. Your body should be healing while you sleep, not fighting for comfort. And we've noticed the difference right from the beginning. If you are waking up stiff and having trouble moving, if you toss and turn all night, if you're too hot, or if you're taking pain meds before bed, that's a bad deal. It's not aging. It could be your mattress talking to you. Here's another thing I love about Ghost Bed, and good for you. You get 101 nights to try it at home. If you don't feel the difference, you can send it back risk-free. Ghost Bed offering my audience the lowest prices of the season plus an extra 10% off. Ghostbed.com/Gruber. Use that promo code Gruber. Ghostbed.com/Gruber. The promo code Gruber. You're going to have the best price of the year. All right? The best price of the year. We use it every night, and it's lovely. Look at me. I feel like $1 million, and I don't mean all green and wrinkly. I mean fresh and ready to go. All right? When we come back, the president suspends a law raising energy prices that my next guest says Congress should repeal. We'll talk about that coming up. All right, so the president has suspended a law raising energy prices, and my next guest says Congress should say no to that idea. Let's find out what the idea is, what it means, and why Kent Strang, the managing director of Americans for Prosperity, thinks it's not a great idea. Kent, good morning.
Great to be with you, Steve. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for being here. All right, so tell us about the proposal and why you don't like it.
Well, President Trump has suspended the Jones Act, and I think that Congress should go a step further and full on repeal it. The Jones Act is a 100-year-old maritime law that says anything shipped from U.S. port to U.S. port has to be on an American-built ship, American-owned ship, and an American crewed ship. And while that might sound super patriotic, the reality is it's a protectionist policy, and it leaves Americans paying more at the gas pump, and it hurts our economy and actually makes us less competitive. And so we want to eliminate this 100-year-old relic and get rid of it once and for all because it negatively impacts our economy.
Right. Just so we're clear on this, a ship comes in from overseas. It's delivering whatever it's delivering. Maybe it's a container ship. Maybe it's crude oil from Venezuela, whatever it might be. And before it can come into an American port, an American crew has to take over. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's from U.S. port to U.S. port. So say that we want to ship crude oil from Texas to the Northeast. So U.S. port to U.S. port. That has to be on an American ship owned by Americans. And so it can be cheaper to get gas or oil from overseas than it can from Texas to the Northeast. And that's ridiculous. And when we have an opportunity right now where we have instability in the Middle East with the Strait of Hormuz being closed, it ought to be less expensive to move oil from domestic port to domestic port than it is to get it from overseas. And it's absolutely wrecked our shipbuilding industry in the United States. There are only two shipyards in America. And meanwhile, places like South Korea and China are building 200 and thousands of ships a year, where we're building 2. And so
hold on. Let me understand this. What mechanism, if you're forcing people moving oil from New Orleans to the East Coast, whatever you might be doing, moving furniture, whatever you're moving, why does that strangle the American shipbuilding industry?
Well, again, it's a protectionist policy, and what it's designed to do is saying you can only make ships in America. And while, again, I'm an American and I want an American economy to thrive, it doesn't allow any competition. It doesn't allow us to go get ships from somewhere else or to buy them elsewhere. It says you have to build it in America. And what that does is it's more expensive to build ships in America. Our labor costs are higher. And so by forcing it to be built in the United States, it costs more to build a ship. There's more regulatory burdens to build the ships. And so the result is fewer ships to move U.S. cargo. Meanwhile, in places like South Korea, they build 200 ships a year. In China, they build 1,000 ships a year. And the law was initially intent to have a strong shipping capacity, and it's done the complete opposite. It's wrecked it. We ought to get rid of this relic so A, we can build more ships, and 2, we can lower prices for American families. This has the potential to have a $3.2 billion impact on GDP, and it cost us, in petroleum costs alone, about $770 billion in higher costs. So when we go to the gas station, it costs us more because the Jones Act is in effect. And so we have an inflection point with what's happening in Iran. It's time for Congress to repeal the Jones Act. So kudos to President Trump for going ahead and extending the waiver for 90 days.
Yeah, and that's been done many times over the last century. The Jones Act gets suspended almost routinely by presidents at different times when there are different things going on. I still don't see how this is a path to building more ships in America, Kent. I don't see it.
Well, we don't necessarily need to build more ships in America. We should build ships where it makes the most economic sense.
But we want to build in America. We want to build cars here. We want John Deere to put its new plant here. We want Mercedes-Benz to come here. Big point of the tariffs is to make sure we have American manufacturing. What can we do to create an American shipbuilding industry again? I guess that's my question.
Well, let's drive competition. In my mind, the free market drives competition. And so rather than making it limited and it's saying this is the only way we can do it, let's put competition in the mix. And so if we put competition in the mix, that makes us all sharper and better. And so that's the way that we can drive free market solutions to getting more ships in America. And if we stifle innovation, if we stifle the free market by saying the only way we can do this is American-made ships, American-built ships, because we've seen the result. We're not building ships in America, too. There are only 54 ships that are Jones Act compliant that can move petroleum in the United States, and it's impacting our economy to move fertilizer. It's impacting our economy to move petroleum and LNG. The United States is the #1 producer of LNG in the world. We don't have a single ship that's Jones Act compliant that can move LNG.
Yeah, what's the penalty, Kent, for violating the Jones Act? I know it's suspended currently. What is the penalty?
Well, I'm not sure what the penalties are, but what it ought to be is it ought to be an opportunity for Congress to say this no longer makes sense. This is a 100-year-old antiquated law. It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't drive competition, and it doesn't do what its initial intended purpose was, which is to make things less expensive, to have a robust shipping industry. And it's time for this to go. And we see it, as you mentioned, every single time there's a national emergency, like a hurricane. We suspend the Jones Act. We should have Congress repeal it. It's a relic. It's time to be done with this. Congress should do the right thing, be done with the Jones Act.
Ken, I appreciate your input here today. We'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, the Jones Act, like I said, it gets suspended regularly over the last 100 years. And if it needs to be suspended that often, maybe it is just in the way. Ken Strang, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Greatly appreciate it. Now, looking at your gas prices, again, I urge the president to pick up the red phone and call his friends at the oil companies because gas has spiked again. It's up 15 cents from a week ago, and oil remains below $100 a barrel. And I discussed this earlier. Look, I do not want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. They spent 50 years threatening to kill America. Death to America, they chant in the streets. Death to America. Well, I don't want that organization, that government, that regime to have a nuclear weapon. Not only to threaten all of its neighbors and be the biggest bully on the block and threaten everyone with a nuclear weapon, but with this new missile technology, we know they can reach Diego Garcia, so that means they can reach all of Europe. Nobody wants that. So the short-term pain of higher gas prices I can live with, but I don't think they're real. What I mean by that is I believe that they're being manipulated for profit by a whole host of people. Like I said, when this whole war in Iran began on the 28th of February, I said that the oil companies, when oil goes up, they'll have a huge quarter, maybe the most profitable quarter of all time. Again, oil remains below $100. Gas, $4.17 is the national average today. That's up 15 cents from 1 week ago. And there's no sense to it. None at all. All right, Melania Trump calling for Jimmy Kimmel to be fired. I mentioned that because of his joke about her having the glow of an expectant widow. It's not funny, it's just vile. All right, it is just vile. And they know it. They all know it. And yet they carry on with it. I've got some emails this week from people taking longevity. They say they love it. 90% of Americans don't get enough essential vitamins and minerals from food alone. Some research suggests natural vitamins may be superior. Look, this is a nutritional shake that has protein, colostrum, DHA. It's got it all in there. And it's great for you health-wise. Go to longevitywellness.co. Use the promo code Gruber at checkout for a special discount. If you become a subscriber, you get a bigger discount. Longevitywellness.co. Go look at the benefits of this beautiful product that we use in this house for well over a year now. Back after this. I've covered politics for decades now. Been to the White House, been on Air Force One, been a variety of places, been in the Oval Office. Covered politics for decades now. And I feel very blessed to be able to have that experience so I can share that with you. All right? It's important that I have these experiences so that I can relate what's happening directly to you. And there has never been a president that's more accessible to the media than Donald Trump. He doesn't say nice things about the media. He calls them the fake news and a lot of other things. And he has sued successfully companies that smeared him, libeled him. That's not an assault on the First Amendment. If you win a lawsuit because you have been libeled, that's not an assault on the First Amendment. That's correcting an assault on you as a person. So right after the event on Saturday, Donald Trump sat down for an interview with Nora O'Donnell of 60 Minutes, of CBS News, and he has to go into fully discrediting the Southern Poverty Law Center because you look back at Charlottesville now, bought and paid for. Patriot Front, these guys, these clowns would, show up with these flags upside down and their faces are covered. And a lot of us kind of thought, well, that's a federal operation back during the Joe Biden years. But now we know a lot of that, if not all of that, was covered through shell companies of the Southern Poverty Law Center. And I want you to hear this exchange between the president and Nora O'Donnell. Here it is.
Fact that they spent millions and millions of dollars on absolute far right and just bad groups. And then they'd use those groups and they'd say, these are Republican groups and we're coming to your rescue. And they're the ones that have funded it and they're the ones that keep them going. Pretty sad. Do you think it's pretty sad, Nora?
The allegations and the indictment
They're
laid
not just
out
allegations.
It's an indictment
These
laid
are
out by
facts, okay? These are facts. I mean, they have checks to the Ku Klux Klan and many others. And then they're saying how bad they are and blaming the Republican Party and Republicans. These are not just allegations, but go ahead.
Well, as you know, sir, you've been accused of things and we're able to go to a court of law and adjudicate them. So allegations and indictments.
After 5 years, it's true. It takes you about 5 years.
I do want to talk about that.
Well, I've also won a lot of money from fake news media where they write falsely about me. And not that I want to sue people, because I don't. But I bring lawsuits against the fake news. I brought lawsuits against your network, and you paid me $38 million because you did something that was so horrible. With Kamala, you put an answer down that wasn't responsive to the question because her real answer was so bad, it was election threatening. And you paid me a lot of money. You tried to pull one off. It was terrible. It was a terrible thing that you did.
And that is not an assault on the First Amendment. That is defending your reputation. That's defending the truth. And when mainstream media manipulates answers, which they did in that particular case with Kamala Harris, they get held accountable now, as they should be. And so he's more accessible than any president in American history. And it was clear, even when Democrats and some alleged Republicans and many in the media and on social media clearly are saying, well, we don't know what this guy's motivations are. Barack Obama was among those, saying we don't know the motive. We know the motive because the man traveled with weapons across the country on a train, booked a hotel room in advance of the event, had a plan, had a manifesto, by the way. Had a manifesto of what he was going to do and why he was going to do it. He thought he was going to be a hero because of misguided coverage from places like CBS that the president sued for. Here's Caroline Levitt talking about that manifesto.
Much of the manifesto of the would-be assassin is indistinguishable from the words that we hear daily from so many. For example, as the First Lady of the United States pointed out this morning, just 2 days prior to the shooting, ABC's late-night host Jimmy Kimmel disgustingly called First Lady Melania Trump an expectant widow. Who in their right minds says a wife would be glowing over the potential murder of her beloved husband? And having experienced what I did with the First Lady on Saturday night, I can tell you that she was anything but that. This kind of rhetoric about the president, the First Lady, and his supporters is completely deranged, and it's unbelievable that the American people are consuming it night after night after night.
Yeah. We'll continue to cover this story and set the record straight. Barack Obama still injecting himself into American politics, not following the tradition of American presidents to just quietly go away and let the new administration run the country. All right, what is the biggest story that we've had in American history or human history has been hiding right in plain sight? On the latest episode of Forgotten America, the podcast, Ivy and I sit down with best-selling author and investigator Kent Heckenlively to ask a question that's suddenly impossible to ignore. And I ask you, are UFOs finally being revealed, or is it just something you want us to see? Is it a distraction? What is it? From Pentagon reports to congressional hearings and whistleblowers coming forward, something has changed, but Kent argues this isn't new. It's a slow, controlled disclosure of secrets that have been buried for decades. So what's really going on? A carefully managed version? I'm not sure. This one will make you think twice. Here is a preview.
The whole idea would be to convince the public that something is out there and we don't know what it is. But that's kind of a con. What they're really trying to conceal is the fact that in the past, they have recovered crashed UFOs, recovered crashed alien or non-human entities, and that they have been reverse engineering these technologies.
Yeah. What do you think? You can watch it for free. It's a fun episode, folks. It is. It's right there on your screen, the QR code. Just click on that. Go to YouTube. It's free to subscribe. Become a subscriber for free. Support the podcast. So many good episodes now that you're going to enjoy. You can see them there listed along the bottom. All sorts of great guests, great conversations, and no commercials. Hallelujah. It's Forgotten America's podcast, me and Ivy. You're going to love it. Promise you that. Again, go to YouTube, search for Steve Gruber, click on it, subscribe for free, and be somebody. UFOs real or not? You tell me. I'll be back. A little bit more on the redistricting now. Of course, Virginia, they have not certified the vote there for redistricting in Virginia as the court cases are going through. There were oral arguments yesterday in the Virginia Supreme Court. Opponents say that the entire process was unconstitutional. They didn't do anything and didn't follow any of the rules to get there. All right, so you got that going on. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court yesterday handed it's a big win to the Republicans, striking down a lower court block on the Texas map. 3 liberal justices dissented, as you can imagine, criticizing the majority in December for its eagerness to play act a district court in Texas. Well, so it is. They struck down the lower court's ruling that had blocked Texas's plans for redrawing its congressional districts. The court hung its order on reasoning from a previous ruling in Abbott v. League of United Latin American Citizens. Did not elaborate. The 3 liberal justices, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Brown Jackson, dissented. That doesn't come as any surprise either. So Texas is in. All right. California, will see how that case out of Louisiana in front of the Supreme Court impacts California. Meanwhile, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, has unveiled the new map. It is remarkable. There are only about 4 districts that would remain Democratic. And this is a huge deal. This is currently the Florida delegation is represented by 20 Republicans and 7 Democrats, with an 8th Democrat seat vacant because Sheila Churfillis McCormick resigned after allegedly stealing $5 million and facing 53 years in prison. The map would throw 4 more seats the Republicans' way. So it'd be 24-6, I believe, 24-6 or 24-5, whatever it is. We'll see how this plays out, but special session is in session now in Florida. So that is another big possibility for pickups for the Republicans. I can tell you the idea that Democrats are going to take over the U.S. Senate is a pipe dream. Trust me on that. But the House, very much in play come November. Very much in play. So all of this maneuvering, this is redistricting on steroids. It is a political fight across the country. And Florida is now in the fight, and they can bring a whole host of seats. We'll see how it plays out. I've got a lot more to come. In the next hour, how much control does the government have over you currently, and what do they want to have? We're going to discuss that with Ivy coming up.
America's awake, and we're just getting started. The headlines that matter, the stories they won't tell you, and the voices fighting to be heard. This is your country, your morning, your daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. A new hour starts right now on Real America's Voice.
And welcome back as we continue fighting for you and for this country from the foxhole of freedom, digging deeper to give you better insight and analysis than anywhere else. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, the Supreme Court gave the green light to the Texas redistricting plan, as I just explained, that will add Republican seats. Virginia maps headed to court, and Florida, well, they're on their way to make a deal. Number two, the would-be weekend assassin of Donald Trump, Cole Allen, now in jail facing numerous charges from his armed assault on the White House Correspondents' Dinner Saturday, facing life in prison. And number three, I want to go in a completely new direction this hour, and that is government control of everything you do. And this time, it's not just your devices they're using to crack down. Now it's controlling how far you can drive, how much gas you can use, and even when you can drive. Something signed into law by feeble Joe Biden back in 2021, the God switch, I call it. I've talked about it for a long time, warned you about it for at least 5 years. And I want you to hear this. At Ford Motor Company, they're cashing in on this deal. Listen to this.
Come on! No! Now imagine there was an emergency outside the truck, an accident, something terrible on the ranch with a chainsaw. And I jump in this truck, but the truck, it won't shift into drive. Why? Because the cameras and sensors inside this cab won't let it shift, because it detects my eyes are big, there's a lot of emotion, there's some panic, and it doesn't feel that I'm fit to drive. Now that's not science fiction. That is happening because Ford just filed the patents.
That's right. It's happening. Joining me now is Ivy. Ivy, what happens? The vehicle senses. Okay, so this is required in all new vehicles by 2027, all right, next year. Vehicle sees that you're agitated, you're scared, you're frightened, whatever it might be, right?
Right. You have an emergency.
You can't drive. What do you think of that?
I think that's absolutely frightening. How can a vehicle determine what the situation is? They don't have any idea. They might be able to see facial cues or like maybe the dilation of your pupils, but how can it know exactly what's going on? I mean, if, say, God forbid you are having a heart attack and I need to get to you or I need to get to the hospital because you're in the seat next to me.
Yeah.
And then it detects, well, you're not fit to drive because you're panicked.
Yeah. Let me give you another scenario. You're on the way wherever you are. You're in a bad part of town. It's at night, and you're agitated, frightened, or whatever it might be. And you've got all these cameras around you because the cameras are scanning your eyes and scanning the vehicle.
Or you're like confronted by a road raging idiot. I don't know. Whatever. See, there's so many scenarios.
And then the car stops. It's not just that it won't start in an emergency situation.
Oh, yeah.
It shuts you down, turns the engine off, makes you pull to the side of the road. You're in a bad neighborhood. It's midnight.
Right. Or take my example, if you need to flee a situation, then it's the car is detecting that you're panicked and you're not fit to drive. It's then going to make you pull over or completely stop the vehicle or by its sensors pull you off the road.
Yeah. Let me share something else with you.
That's really frightening.
It is frightening. I call it the God switch because it's controlled by satellites. The finger of God comes down, boom, shuts your car off. It's AI. It doesn't have emotion. It doesn't have mitigating circumstances. It has black and white. So here's something else I've warned you about. The government telling you how much you can use your own car in the name of climate change. Listen to this.
Bill proposed in Massachusetts would limit how far you can drive in your own car. So lawmakers say it would help reduce the state's greenhouse gas emissions. Now, while no specific mileage limit was listed, the bill would require MassDOT to set goals to reduce the number of statewide driving miles. It would also establish a new council to find ways to make public transportation more accessible for residents. Now, critics say A cap on personal vehicle miles would directly impact those in rural parts of the state.
No kidding.
Steve, do we live in the land of the free anymore?
Not-
What is going on with all of this government overreach? This is ridiculous.
Well, okay, so you've got the switch in the car that controls when you can drive your car, if you're fit to drive your car, based on a computer analysis from AI. And then you've got these people putting together a council in Massachusetts to determine, well, Mrs. Gruber, you get 10 gallons of gas this month, or whatever it is.
You've driven way too much. Maybe I just need to get out of the house and get some fresh air and drive around, because sometimes that's where I think best, is in the car.
No, that's not allowed.
Or maybe I need to have a meeting, and the best place to do that is in my car. So I decided to drive around and have that meeting.
Not allowed.
Or I want to go visit family members.
No.
Can't do any of that.
No, these are the same people that are sitting there screaming that Donald Trump is an authoritarian. Donald Trump is a fascist.
Right. When all of your policies are authoritative.
Yeah, and fascist. But I've warned about this for a long time. Look,
sure
the government, the control over you in the name of climate change, but they want to force you onto the bus. They want you to get on the public bus.
Right. Or the train or whatever else.
Or your
Public
bicycle.
transportation that nobody utilizes. I mean, I know in Florida they created the Sunrail, and it goes right through the town that I went to college in. And when I go back to visit there, oftentimes there are maybe 5 or 10 people on this giant bus, and it's like, why did you guys spend all this millions and millions of dollars for this? Nobody utilizes it the way that you would hope they would. People want to be able to get in their car and go where they want to go. It's a nice freedom that we have.
It's an American thing.
Exactly.
Freedom, Route 66, letting the hair, your
blow back in the wind.
Let your hair blow back in the wind and just enjoy a drive. It's America. It's called freedom.
That's right.
By the way, Jeffrey says a lot more Democrats will be stranded because they're always agitated.
That's hilarious. Well, listen, I think this has to do with your data protections too, because this in the vehicle and the Ford vehicles and the patents that they're filing, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be running facial recognition to run through a law enforcement database. So before you may not even do anything wrong. They're going to scan your face, run it through law enforcement. Have you done anything wrong? Have you not done anything wrong?
There's something I hadn't considered. So let's say you have an outstanding parking ticket.
Right.
Because you forgot to pay a parking ticket, and you go to start your car, the little thing comes up. You have unpaid tickets. The car will not function.
Right. Or maybe you look very similar to somebody who has a warrant.
Oh, there is that.
And then it mistakes your identity. I mean, all these scenarios can be considered. The other thing that it does, there's lip reading cameras. So the system can read your lips.
Really?
And determine what you're talking about. And if they can't get a good reading on your lips, if that's not far enough, the system can read the echoes bouncing off your mouth. And then what they do is it's determined that is a maximum opportunity of ad-based monetization. So they're listening and watching what you're talking about. So then they can feed you ads through your cell phone.
Or your sound system in your car.
Or your sound system in your car when you're listening maybe to Sirius or Spotify or whatever. It's going to feed you ads based on what you're talking about.
I hate it.
And not only that, but like...
Hold on.
Go ahead.
We're up against it.
Oh, no.
I'm going to have you back on this because we're just starting to dig in. AI can be a great thing. AI can overpower you. The government and AI together, frightening scenario.
We need to start the flip back movement, Steve.
We do.
Let's go back to flip phones.
I agree. Love you.
Love you.
All right, I want you to feel great today. I do. My next guest has been doing something as a side hustle for a while now, helping people get better sleep, less pain, even take care of their pets. My pet used this product. It's for man and beast as well. Tim Roberts, the owner of Patriots Relief, is with me. Tim, good morning.
Steve, how are you?
I'm good. Pain relief the natural way, the all-natural approach, CBD. What is the CBD story, Tim? Why? And people have confusion about what CBD is and isn't, but why does it work?
So, a lot of times people, and I was one of those people that kind of mix up CBD with THC. And you've talked about this many times. And, there are two compounds found in cannabis plants, right? But the THC is the one that gets you high. And the CBD is the one that gets you healthy, is the kind of way I talk about it. And the reason for that is your body has something called an endocannabinoid system. And CBD is a compound. That compound that's produced in plants is similar to the same compound that your body is actually supposed to produce. And age, genetics, environment, all of these play a factor in that system internally not producing those compounds. In your body, they're called endogenous or endocannabinoids, and in the plant, they're called phytocannabinoids. But the great thing about it, Steve, is that those phytocannabinoids work just as well in your body to help that system heal your body. It's all about balance. That system was designed to keep your body in balance. And when disease comes in, or pain, and like you were just talking about, stress, anxiety, sleep, all of those things are a signal that your body's out of balance, and you probably have a weakening endocannabinoid system, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I talked about the pets. I had a dog, Cody. She lived to be 16 and a half until last year. And I thought she was basically done at 14. I mean, she's an old dog, a blue heeler, and I thought, she had a good life. She's 14. And then I met you, and we started giving her this tincture. And, man, it extended her life by 2 years or more. It did. And I know because I saw it, because she was able to move around better. She was not in as much pain. And she can't read the label. And it worked for her, right?
Right. That's exactly right. That's the story that I tell a lot of people, because like you said, that dog had no idea what you were giving it, but it responded. And that's how your endocannabinoid system would respond as well. It would get that balance going, start modulating those pains, all of that. It's I call it God's superhero system. And if it's got the energy to do what it's supposed to do, it's going to function.
There you go. You got a great special today, 45% off. Today only, with free shipping, 45% off at patriotsrelief.com. There's also a phone number they can call. Tell them what it is.
877-230-1776. And I want to, we talk about this often, Steve, is the combo packs that we put together for people, because when you go to the website, it's overwhelming, isn't it? There's just so many products. Yeah. So what we like to do is make sure that people understand, get that CBD internally, like you did with Cody, with the tincture, put it under your tongue, hold it there for 30 seconds to a minute, let it absorb into your system, get into the blood, and start doing its thing. So that's internal. You can do that with the tincture, which is the best way. We've got gummies and we've got soft gels, but then the topical, right? Your knees, when you go and your trainer works you out really hard and your shoulders get hurty, you can come home, you can put some of that intensive relief rub, the topical, onto that shoulder and get that feeling better.
Yeah, Anthony limps out here from being at the gym too much, and he grabs my... In fact, I see it's missing.
I have it.
You see? Anthony has it.
It's my tennis elbow or my...
You got to buy your own, Anthony. You got to buy your own.
Exactly. Anyhow, 45% off today only. Internal, external, it works. And it works for your animals, too. Trust me on this. I saw it with my own eyes. 40% off the rest of the week. The promo code is Gruber. You just have to go to patriotsrelief.com/Gruber or call 877-230-1776. Tim Roberts, thank you as always, my friend.
You're welcome. Remember, no more natural way of healing your body than CBD. Get away from pharmaceuticals. Get it done naturally.
Do it the natural way.
Thank you, Steve.
Tim, thank you. Again, it's patriotsrelief.com/Gruber or 877-230-1776. 45% off today only, 40% the rest of the week. All right, turning my attention now to something else we've warned you about. And here it is. Listen to this headline. Muslim voters are reshaping UK politics. No kidding. Color me shocked. Muslim voters reshaping UK politics, creating new challenges for the Starmer government. By the way, Keir Starmer in the UK right now has an 18% approval rating. But the growing numbers of Muslims in the UK, along with their organized and issue-driven politics, has made them an increasingly consequential part of the country's electorate. In fact, because they vote almost uniformly in a bloc, they create real changes. Recent elections have shown the country's estimated 4 million people, or roughly 6.5% of the country's overall population, but enough to determine electoral outcomes, especially in certain districts, and nudge national parties to recalibrate their platforms, of course, to the left. This joining of the far left with Muslim politics is pushing these countries to the far left. And it's a problem in Europe. UK foreign policy when it comes to heavily Muslim parts of the world like Gaza and Iran has become especially problematic, according to surveys. Change among Muslim voters have also fragmented the traditional Labour Party coalition and, according to some reports, have accelerated the shift towards transactional politics, i.e., hey, we'll give you this government handout, you vote for us. That's the transaction. Hey, we've got some free stuff for you. Make sure you all vote for me. That's what's happening. And that will happen here if we're not mindful. All right? These voting blocks are shifting Europe to the far left. And it comes as no real surprise, now does it? No, it does not. All right, we're going to take a break. Remember to send me an email if you'd like. SteveGruber.com. Send me an email. If you don't get a chance to get on Free for All Fridays each week, you can always send me a note. I read them all. I respond to as many as I can. SteveGruber.com. I'll be right back. Can you get them out of my ear? All right, back to it now. Busy week. You know, you would think that at some point the news cycle would slow down. It does not. It is moving faster all the time. Iran hanging on right now, even though they're losing $400 million a day. They're finding some workarounds, but they've had a lot of their assets have been seized, crypto assets for sure. They're not shipping any oil out. Look, they've only got a few days left. They can only pump so much oil. This is a real problem for Iran. Whether the hardliners like it or not, they're in real trouble here. But I want to share something else with you here. I saw this yesterday. And it was the best, most sober explanation of abortion from an OBGYN that I've maybe ever heard. And I thought it was worth sharing, and I want you to hear it too. Here it is.
My name is Dr. Monique Wilbenhorst. I am a practicing board-certified OBGYN with more than 30 years' experience in patient care, teaching, research, health policy, and global health. I'd like to begin by noting that the Dobbs decision presents an opportunity to mitigate abortion's many harms to women, unborn children, families, and community. Abortion not only poses risks to the mother, it is also, by definition, always lethal to an embryo or fetus, an unborn child who is a human being, a member of the human family. Not a clump of cells or a potential child, but a child assuming the human form. Abortion's goal is to kill that human being. It neither treats, palliates, or prevents any disease and is therefore not health care. This is reinforced by the fact that the majority of OBGYNs do not perform abortions. Studies show that the percentage that do is declining and has been for decades, from a high of 40% in 1985 to between 7 and 24% at present. Given this, abortion cannot be considered essential health care for women, and if abortion is health care, my question is, what disease are you treating?
What a question. If abortion is health care, what disease are you treating? That is the best question. And she phrased it so well. An African-American OBGYN saying this is not health care. Board certified. Decades on the job. I thought it was well worth hearing. I'm hoping you did too. Just a remarkable, sober explanation. The fetus is taking on the human form. Good stuff. That's why I'm pro-life, my friends, right there. I am pro-life. And she did it in such a nice way. I'm going to take a break and be back. Glad to see you this morning. All right, I'm going to talk vaccines here for a moment. There's been a big change, of course, in the vaccine schedule. There's some fighting going on in courtrooms over this change from Health and Human Services and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It was the required recommended, I guess. Some of it's required, some of it's recommended, depending on how you look at these rules. It was dozens of vaccinations. When I was a kid, we didn't have all that. And I think they reduced it to 11. My next guest says that might be problematic for the Republicans come November. Dr. Michael Burgess, Communities United for Smart Policy Senior Advisor, retired physician, and a former congressman from Texas. Doctor, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so a lot of Michigan voters, because you did a survey in Michigan where I live, so I find that interesting. 72% say vaccines are key to keeping America healthy as midterms approach. I think that's true. I think most people think that vaccines, certain vaccines, have been proven over time to be helpful. But this flood of vaccines has not been popular with a lot of folks. And the poll also reveals that 38% of Michigan Republicans and 34% of independents, you say, are less likely to vote because of changes to childhood vaccine recommendations. What can you tell me about this survey?
Well, I think the important thing to take from that survey is, okay, 38%, 34% in independents, but this midterm is going to hinge on fairly narrow margins on both sides, quite honestly. And I am a Republican, and no question about that. I represented a district that was strongly Republican for 22 years in the United States House of Representatives. And I want the Republicans to do well, but I'm concerned because there has been a shift, and you do see people questioning whether this shift in vaccine policy is something that is good for them and good for their families. And look, no one argues with the concept of making America healthy again, but it's hard to see how you make America healthy if you discount the benefits of vaccine-preventable diseases.
Well, some of them, but here's the problem. The government lost its credibility because of the mRNA injections. I mean, people just lost faith. We were not told the truth about them completely. There's just no question about that at this point, I would say, Doctor. And they didn't stop the spread. They didn't stop the disease. They didn't stop much of anything. And we've had numerous doctors on this program who had said that they would not recommend that injection for anybody anymore and that they were wrong. I've had Dr. Robert Redfield was just here. He said he was wrong about everything, the former director of the CDC. So when people lose trust in government and the recommendations they make, I don't know how Republicans pay that price, but how do you get around that?
Well, you are correct in that, and I won't disagree at all, that a significant amount of credibility was lost during the COVID years. But remember, most of that was after the Trump administration had concluded the first time, and the Biden administration, they came in and said, while the vaccine was still under emergency use authorization, and they started pushing the widespread use of it. Now, I, for one, was fine with that. I couldn't wait to take the protection from that particular illness. So I was concerned because of my age, because of some other underlying medical conditions that I have. I was certainly one of the ones that would be at risk, and I identified that in myself. And sure enough, I wanted to participate. But you can't extrapolate that to the population writ large, which is what, unfortunately, the Biden administration did. And then the other point, and this was so critical during COVID, when there were discrepancies or when there were issues that changed because new data came forward, very reluctant for the folks at CDC and HHS to admit that they had new data and they now felt a different way than they did 2 months ago.
That's right.
Come on.
They wouldn't admit. You're exactly right, Doctor. And that's why I found Dr. Robert Redfield to be refreshing. The former director of the CDC saying, I got it wrong. Others should admit what he is admitting. We had it all wrong when it came to the mRNA injection. But let's talk about more traditional vaccines, polio, measles, whatever it might be. People are still generally okay with that. Kids still get their childhood vaccinations, but they don't need 70 of them, do they?
I don't know that 70 is actually the number, but the illnesses that you're trying to prevent, and this is one of the things that's been frustrating to me on the physician side, the illnesses that you're trying to prevent, people don't know about them anymore because we've done such a good job of preventing them. When's the last time you heard of someone having a wild case of rubella in the community? It just doesn't happen. But the danger there is a pregnant mom who gets exposed to rubella, her child can be desperately badly affected by congenital rubella. No doctor now, practicing now, has seen a case of congenital rubella. It just doesn't happen anymore. But it doesn't mean that the disease has stopped. The disease is still out there and still can affect people who are not protected. So I guess my concern comes more from the side of, do you really have to be concerned about meningitis anymore? And the answer is you kind of do. Do you really need to be concerned about hepatitis anymore? And the answer is you kind of do. It's not like those diseases were repealed. They are still out there.
But here's my question. Let me ask you this. Because it was the Biden administration that blew all the trust out of the health agencies in America. And in Michigan, like a lot of states, schools were closed, shouldn't have been. Stores were locked down, shouldn't have been. 6 feet was random. Everybody knows that. But the concern, as I look forward, is how do you say to people now, these vaccines are good, these are not good? I mean, how do you ever get that trust back?
Well, it's a long road.
And I guess my question is this: can you really lay the blame for an increase in measles outbreaks in America to a lack of vaccination? Or is it because we let 20 million people in that didn't have their vaccination records, had never been vaccinated, and now you're getting illegals into the country that have these outbreaks of diseases? Is it really a lack of vaccination or an open border?
Well, it's both, and that therein is the difficulty. So if you want to protect your child or your family against diseases that still exist outside our borders, and people are just a plane ride from arriving within our borders, and we saw that in Dallas in 2014 with the Ebola outbreak in Liberia, and the next thing you knew, it was in our backyard at Presbyterian Hospital. So it is, you can't ignore the fact that these diseases do still exist, and to the extent there are diseases that are preventable by vaccines, pay attention to that. And I think that's what the polling shows, that people are paying attention, and it can make a difference in how they make their selection in November as to what a candidate's position on vaccines is. And then here's the other thing, since we talk about the midterms so much, it is all about the midterms. The direction of the country really could pivot dramatically with just a small population of voters. And that's why this issue, for me as a Republican, that's why it's so important to get the message out to my fellow Republicans.
Because of the margins. Yeah, because of the margins.
How you talk about this. People are paying attention.
Yep. Got to leave it right there. Dr. Michael Burgess, thank you for being here. Good conversation, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good deal. Anytime, Steve.
All right. I'm not sure that that'll be the big pivotal, but he's, on the margins. Does it really impact the way you vote, the way people vote? Again, send me an email, stevegruber.com. Always interested in what you have to say. It gets more controversial after the break. I can guarantee you that. Coming up. All right, let's get back right into it now. If you missed it, Lee Zeldin yesterday took a complete, he just took it to a member of Congress yesterday. I don't remember her name, the lady with the purple hair. She was not familiar what the Loper-Bright decision was and how he was following the law. She was completely clueless. And now there's a concern that the Supreme Court is being told to use standards that it should not use. Kevin Mooney is a senior investigative researcher for Restoration News, specializing in energy policy, environmentalist groups, and dark money. And he says the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court must act to restore real science to judicial oversight, not just, bias, I suppose. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, so tell me what's happening here and why you're concerned that somehow they're trying to do an end run on the Loper-Bright decision or the Michigan v. EPA decision or any of these.
Yeah, no, this is a big story, I think. There is a group of scientists who have sent a letter to Chief Justice John Roberts. He sits on top of this judicial agency that Congress created at some point so that judges would have access to real hard science as opposed to politicized science. And the long and short of it is that climate activists have burrowed into the process with this reference guide that they're trying to circulate throughout the entire judiciary, which would basically make an end run around the scientific method and basically encourage justices to follow the siren song of so-called consensus theories and the idea of what the elite club of the scientific establishment might think at one point in time is what should govern judicial rulings. And the Chief Justice does have the power and authority to go back and revisit these reference manuals and make sure they are depoliticized. And that process, thankfully, is underway because of this letter that went to the Chief Justice. Of course, it's ultimately up to him what happens. So very high-profile deregulatory cases making their way through the federal judiciary at this moment.
Right. So what you're saying is that Loper-Bright, which basically got rid of the Chevron doctrine, which was basically I'll use the EPA as an example, Kevin. The EPA would issue rules based on whatever the EPA issued rules on, and then they would regulate themselves, and they were the place that you would have a place if you wanted to object to a ruling. You go back to the same people that made the ruling in the first place. It was a terrible situation, and you got all these bad policies based on God only knows what, and they said, look, these regulatory agencies cannot be self-regulating. They cannot issue rules, which are basically laws, without oversight. And they changed everything, didn't it?
Yeah, well, that is a critically important decision. The decision really is a huge leap back in the way of constitutional limited government. We're talking about very dense legalistic topics in some respects, but ultimately it's about getting back to the original American Constitution. The three branches of government, not this unelected fourth branch that goes out and sets policies that are very expensive for all of us. And the EPA administrator is correct. He is simply following what the Supreme Court has said. Which is to put these executive agencies back inside of a constitutional box so that ultimately it's Congress and our elected officials that decide what the law is going to be, not some unaccountable bureaucrats. So Lee Zeldin, here on the cusp of 250 years of American independence, I think gets a real gold star for making the government more accountable to the American people.
So basically, what I take from this is these environmental groups, these climate change activists, they're trying to burrow their way in and undermine the authority of these courts. And what they're really trying to get to is the unfettered ability to sue oil companies, which will cost trillions of dollars, would bankrupt America, would create huge problems. We run on large quantities of oil and natural gas and coal. That's the way the American economy runs. It's the way the country runs, vast quantities of cheap, available energy. And they want to undermine all of that. And so they see an inroad here. Am I getting that right?
They want a revenue stream. So remember, follow the money. This is not about a pristine climate or a good environment. If you look at what these jokers actually support, none of it's good for the environment anyway, if you look at some of their green energy schemes. But what they really want is unfettered access to sue and suppress American domestic energy production, attack fossil fuel companies, make things more expensive for the rest of us while they line our pockets. That's really what it's about in a nutshell. And there is an opportunity here for the judiciary under the guidance of the Chief Justice to go back to reference material, which began as a very laudable exercise when Congress set this law in place that in cases that involve scientific evidence, what would be admitted, what would be excluded. Well, only hard science would be admitted. not these sort of unhinged theories that can't be established through real world observation. So I think it's sitting right on the edge. If these climate activists succeed, I think one of the largest deregulatory efforts in history could fail, unfortunately.
Yeah. So here you go. And how do you fix it? Because they're telling, this manual is basically telling judges, rely on scientific consensus, not the scientific method, to decide your cases. Does it have any teeth? Does it have the ability to force judges to do this? And what can we do to correct this, as I see it, as a problem?
Well, I would say very simply, the law is actually on our side. In this letter that was addressed to the Chief Justice by this group of very well-credentialed scientists, they cite a decision, I think it was the Doper decision, which said that the Supreme Court has to rely on the scientific method. So there's already laws in place that says that when judges are making these decisions in terms of what they admit, what they exclude, they have to rely on evidence that actually squared with real-world observations, not just simply theories that seem to be fashionable in a period of time. So I would say the good news for us is that there's already legal precedent that says that the court should follow this rule. Unfortunately, this reference manual that's now in circulation is written entirely by what I'll call political scientists, not actual scientists. So I guess give them credit for being sly. They know how to aim their arrow.
They do.
But while the case involving the endangerment finding is making its way up to the court, this is a rubber meets the road moment.
We're going to find out. Kevin Mooney, thank you for taking the time to explain it to us. I greatly appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thank you very much. Look, keep up with everything that's going on. Even when the program's not on the air, you can follow me on social media. Let's see. We got Instagram, X, Facebook, TikTok, Getter, Truth. We're all over the place. Follow me on all those platforms. And don't forget to follow me for free and become a subscriber on YouTube and get a chance to see all the Forgotten America podcasts. This week, UFOs, real or not? Is the government hiding it from us? Well, you can decide for yourself after Ivy and I have a long conversation about it on Forgotten America. Right there it is on your screen. YouTube. Look up Steve Gruber. Free to subscribe. Become somebody. Be smarter than your friends.
Do you
All right, let's check in on sports now with Brock Palmbush.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. 3 NBA playoff games last night in round one. Orlando beat Detroit 94-88 in game 4. Magic up 3-1. Denver throttled Minnesota 125-113 in game 5. Timberwolves still lead that series 3-2. And Oklahoma City finished off a 4-game sweep of the Phoenix Suns with a 131-122 win in game 4. 3 more playoff games are tonight. Also, Dallas Mavericks forward Cooper Flagg was named the NBA's Rookie of the Year. Just 2 games in the NBA playoffs last night in round 1. Pittsburgh beat Philadelphia 3-2 in game 5. Flyers still lead the series 3-2. And Vegas got past Utah in overtime 5-4 in game 4. Series all even at 2. There are 3 more playoff games tonight. And in Major League Baseball, there were 8 games played last night. Winners included the New York Yankees, Chicago White Sox, St. Louis, and San Diego. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, Brock, thank you for that. When the dollar's convertibility into gold ended in 1971, gold was fixed at $35 an ounce. Fast forward to today, and the U.S. dollar has lost over 85% of its purchasing power. Gold, on the other hand, has increased in value by over 12,000%. That's why central banks are buying gold at record levels. That's why major firms like Vanguard and BlackRock hold significant positions in gold. And that's why I encourage you to consider diversifying your savings with physical gold from Birch Gold Group. But it starts with education. Birch Gold just announced their Learn and Earn Precious Metals event. This free online event rewards you for learning the basics of investing in precious metals. Sign up to get free silver on your next purchase. Get even larger incentives as you go. The more you learn, the more you can earn. But you must act now, as this special event only runs through April the 30th. The dollar lost its anchor in 1971. You don't have to lose yours. Text the word America to the number 989898 to join Birch Gold's Learn and Earn Precious Metals event by April the 30th. Text America to 989898 today. And say good morning to little Kitty. Hi, young man. Good to see you. All right, good to have you here. It's always an adventure, isn't it? Always an adventure. Appreciate you being here. Remember to follow me on those social media platforms. Make sure you become a free subscriber on YouTube, right? It's free. What else can I give you here today? You're going to love the Forgotten America podcast. For those of you on Real America's Voice, Sunrise is up next. For the rest of you on MTN and all the other streaming platforms, we have another big hour coming up, so you don't want to miss any of that. Nice to see you on a Tuesday.
America's awake, and we're just getting started. The headlines that matter, the stories they won't tell you, and the voices fighting to be heard. This is your country, your morning, your daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. A new hour starts right now.
All right, back to it, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom every single day and doing our level best. I will never surrender. Here are three big stories for this hour. Number one, a whole host of dead bald eagles found in northern Michigan in the UP near Escanaba. What is that about? We'll talk about it. A cold case, a fascinating cold case out of Morenci, Michigan. A grim discovery in Tennessee, igniting hopes that some missing brothers may have been found. We'll talk about that. And number three, the blowback. The blowback continues against the Democrats who just refuse to admit that their rhetoric, their hateful comments about Donald Trump being Hitler and a fascist and a existential threat to America leads to the type of thing that we saw on Saturday night. I mean, how far back do you have to go? And how far gone do you have to be to forget that Steve Scalise was gunned down during a congressional baseball game practice by a radical leftist that came from Illinois to kill members of Congress, as many as he could. And if not for the protective detail with Scalise, many would have died. Charlie Kirk gunned down because of what he had to say in public. President Trump now the target of at least 3 assassination attempts, and yet Barack Obama comes out and posts on social media right after it happens, preaching to his choir, I guess. Oh, we don't know what the motive is. Of course we know what the motive is. Cole Allen wrote all about his motive and released it. Cole Allen, 31-year-old teacher of the month, traveled all the way from California through Chicago to D.C., checked into the hotel the day before, armed with a shotgun, a handgun, numerous knives. He intended to fight his way into the ballroom. He got arrested. He didn't die, which is remarkable. Mahek Cook nuked, by the way, Barack Obama yesterday for lying about there being no motive for Cole Allen's armed attack on the White House Correspondents' Dinner. She dismembered him. Here it is.
Look, Barack Obama is a liar and a fraud. And now millions of Americans are realizing, the sympathetic voters, the people who didn't know what they were going to do this midterm, that the left is aggressive. They have spent 10 years calling Trump fascist, Hitler, everything under the sun. They have allowed for political violence. And now the leader of their party is showing us exactly who they are. They are not for us. They're just using this for politics, and it's despicable.
Yeah, it is just despicable. And if you're wondering about who and what Cole Allen was or what he believed or what he intended to do, Caroline Levitt laid it out from the podium yesterday. Here she is.
Much of the manifesto of the would-be assassin is indistinguishable from the words that we hear daily from so many. For example, as the First Lady of the United States pointed out this morning, just 2 days prior to the shooting, ABC's late-night host Jimmy Kimmel disgustingly called First Lady Melania Trump an expectant widow. Who in their right minds says a wife would be glowing over the potential murder of her beloved husband? And having experienced what I did with the First Lady on Saturday night, I can tell you that she was anything but that. This kind of rhetoric about the president, the First Lady, and his supporters is completely deranged, and it's unbelievable that the American people are consuming it night after night after night.
Jimmy Kimmel remained true to form yesterday, though. He did not back down. He says, I wasn't making a joke about the president being assassinated, just dying. As if somehow that's better. Well, you know, he's almost 80 and she's 56 or whatever, he said. As if somehow that's better. It's not better. It's reprehensible. And it's not about free speech. It's about holding people accountable. Look, you can say whatever you want, but there are consequences. There are consequences when you say things. You might lose a job. You might post something on social media and lose a job. You might have a lot of things happen. You might lose friends. You can say what you want, but there are consequences. There are repercussions for what you say. That's a fact. And ABC ought to be on top of it enough to understand that Jimmy Kimmel is vile. He's not a comedian. Oh, he's a left-wing comedian. He's not funny. Look, I've listened to left-wing comedians my whole life. They're funny. Right-wing comedians, they're funny because they go after people. They say inappropriate things, but there's a difference between inappropriate and just malicious and vile. There's a difference. By the way, Democrat Jamie Raskin, his takeaway from the shooting on Saturday night, of course, was to take your guns away. Not to hold people accountable, not to say, look, we need to tone it down like Donald Trump did at the press conference on Saturday night. He toned it down. He said there was unity there between Republicans and Democrats and independents. Oh, Jamie Raskin's not having any part of that. He just wants to take your guns away. Here he is.
You know, I heard President Trump talk about this demonstrating the importance of the new ballroom, and he sent out some messages about the ballroom, and that might help people who are visiting the White House. But what about people who are in shopping malls and movie theaters and high schools and elementary schools across the country? So I hope we can have a serious bipartisan national conversation about what we can do to improve public safety for everybody.
Let me translate for you. He does not want conversation. He wants confiscation. There's a significant difference. He doesn't want to have a conversation about guns. He wants to confiscate guns. Because that's what the folks on the left want. They don't care that the president was shot at. They blame him. They don't care that Charlie Kirk was murdered. They blame him for saying things that other people didn't like. And that's the problem with that. Back to this cold case now. Fascinating story on Michigan News Source. A grim discovery in Tennessee igniting the hopes that the long-missing Skelton brothers may have finally been found. They've been missing since 2010. But authorities in Memphis, Tennessee, have uncovered the skeletal remains of 3 young children, estimated to be between the ages of 3 and 7, in a wooded area after an anonymous tip led police to skulls and additional bones. The remains are thought to have been at the site for years, prompting investigators to examine missing children cases across the country, including one of Michigan's most haunting cases, that of the Skelton brothers, Andrew, age 9, Alexander, age 7, and Tanner, age 5. They vanished over the Thanksgiving weekend in 2010 while in the custody of their father, John Skelton, in Morenci, Michigan. Skelton told investigators he gave the kids to an underground group for their protection. But those claims were never supported by any evidence. And despite... What's that?
What do you mean underground group? What does that mean?
Like, put them into protective custody. Maybe a cult. Protective custody of some sort. Strange story, right? He told authorities he'd given the boys to an underground group for their safety. Never any evidence of that. And despite extensive searches across Michigan, they've never been recovered. But in 2025, after the boys were legally declared dead, Skelton was charged for their murders 15 years later. And now, the Michigan State Police are working with the Memphis Police Department, providing DNA and dental records from the Skelton brothers. We'll see how it turns out. And if it's not the Skelton brothers, it's just heartbreak for another family. But it seems plausible, doesn't it? Seems plausible, 16 years later. We'll keep you updated on this one, and I'll be back. All right, I was just telling you about the Skelton brothers missing since 2010. That's a story on MichiganNewsSource.com. Is it them? Does it fit the timeline? Maybe. Hard to say. And my next guest, Katie Hyde, the news director of Michigan News Source, joining me. And Katie, you posed a good question just before we came on. Does it fit a timeline? Is it possible? I don't know how far Morenci is from where these three bodies were found in Tennessee, but I would think that 8 or 10 hour drive one way, it's a 24-hour turnaround. It's a doable timeline if it turns out to be them. If not, it's a tragedy for another family.
Absolutely. And what a tragedy for the Skelton family as well, of being around for 15 years and not knowing what has happened to your boys. As a mom, I cannot imagine that heartbreak, but I'm hoping that the Michigan State Police and the crews that they're working with down there in Tennessee can find some closure for the Skelton family. And as the article said, and you said before the break, that if it's not them, then it means heartbreak for another family. I think it does highlight how grateful we can be for this modern technology that can help us in cold cases back at a time when maybe DNA evidence and technology wasn't as good, and all of these different technological advances that can help us find justice for the families and give them some answers. So we will be tracking that.
Yeah, absolutely true. We'll have to see DNA. That's what they're waiting on now. If they make a DNA match, then you start to put the timeline together. The father already charged for their murders, so we'll see where that goes. You can find all these stories, by the way, at MichiganNewsSource.com, MichiganNewsSource.com. Strange story out of Escanaba, Delta County. 5 bald eagles found deceased between April 3rd and April 17th. And the DNR, the supervisor says, quote, "We can confirm that the eagles did not die from natural causes, predators, or vehicle collisions." My takeaway from that is they were shot. It doesn't say that quite there, but that's going to be my inference from that. I mean, really, people out, killing eagles seems like an odd practice.
Right. I don't know what to make of that. The DNR will hopefully have some more information in the days to come. They have put out a request for tips. They said you can remain anonymous, but they are also looking at a possible cash reward for anybody that can lead them to answers. That number you can call or text is 800-292-7800. And it's also worth noting that eagles are a state and federally protected species. So punishment for that crime is a 90-day misdemeanor. There's also an assortment of fines and covering up court costs as it relates to each eagle. So we will be following that story as well, trying to figure out.
A little aside to that, if you see a bald eagle, any bird of prey, bald eagle, red-tailed hawk, any bird of prey dead in the middle of the road, you are not allowed to touch it. You are not allowed to move that carcass. That is the federal law. It's a serious law. Whoever they find, if they find the perpetrators behind this, they're facing real fines and real jail time. We'll see where that happens.
It's not cheap. You're correct.
All right, so in the race for governor, Katie, Perry Johnson has pulled into a dead heat with John James. Perry Johnson was in single digits. He spent a pile of money, as everybody knows. He's spending millions of his own dollars again. This time he got the signatures right, which was a problem 4 years ago, but he got the signatures right, and he's in this thing. He has been out there loudly talking about the Southern Poverty Law Center and the fact that Jocelyn Benson, who appears to be the Democrat frontrunner to be the Democrat nominee for governor in Michigan, worked there. You've got a pretty big story on this.
Yes, she worked there. She interned there. She was on the board for a bit before she was elected Secretary of State. So her ties to the Southern Poverty Law Center are deep. And by her own admission, she says in her memoir from last year, The Purposeful Warrior, that the Southern Poverty Law Center was where she found purpose. It not only gave her the inspiration for her book title, but also for her work. And the Michigan Fair Elections Institution stressed that Benson's affiliation with the SPLC wasn't peripheral, and by her own account. And so what is happening is the federal grand jury indicted the Southern Poverty Law Center, alleging that it created the very problems that it pledged to solve. In other words, racism isn't as bad in this country as they would like it to be. So they paid informants to incite these riots and rallies so they could then come in and solve the problem. And I'm reminded of a phrase a friend used years ago. I've never been able to forget it. It's so good. Sometimes people are both the firefighter and the arsonist. They come in there to solve a problem and they solve it, but it wouldn't exist if they hadn't created it in the first place. So
Exactly
she has
right.
a lot to answer for. She didn't answer to us, but she did give a statement to Fox News, or rather her campaign did. And she laid it at the feet of Donald Trump and said he's
Of
trying to
course.
use his Justice Department to distract from his reckless economic policies that are driving up costs for Michiganders, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah.
that's where that story sits. It will be very interesting to see how these charges move forward.
Anybody who has followed this program for any number of years knows that I have had a problem with the SPLC for 15 years. I worked with them 25 years ago on a story in Ohio to find the Ku Klux Klan. After weeks of searching, we were able to find 3 members, a father and 2 kids. That's it. And at that time, the SPLC said there were less than 10,000 members of the Klan in America. But suddenly, there's this great explosion of white supremacy. They're all hiding behind Cracker Barrel or something like that. It's all nonsense. Trump. Yeah, because Trump. Right. So it's utter BS. And I'm glad the Southern Poverty Law Center has been called out for being a fraud. I've called him a fraud for 15 years, and I stand by it. And it looks like I have been proven to be right in that. And look, if this is what was the defining part of her career, what? Paying informants? Which part of it defined her career? These are great questions. What part of it made you feel good? Paying the Ku Klux Klan to create, anyhow. Makes my blood boil, Katie. You can find Katie's... Yeah, you can find Katie's great work and the great team at Michigan News Source by going to MichiganNewsSource.com. These stories and other great stories available, MichiganNewsSource.com. All right, there you have it. Katie, as always, good to talk to you.
You too. Have a great day.
You too. Greatly appreciate it. All right, so Southern Poverty Law Center, what a bunch of fraudulent smears. There's a smear campaign against people in this country, and they had their hate map. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Anyhow, Christians, anybody that was white, anybody that stood up for America, you were a hate monger. Yeah, okay. I'll take a break and be right back. So earlier this year, last year, I guess, Doug Burgum, the Interior Secretary, implemented fees on foreign visitors to national parks and national monuments and so forth. And the Democrats screamed, that's discrimination. Really? How many places do you read about now? Ivy sees this all the time. You want to travel overseas, right? And different places that are popular have different fees, extra fees for foreign visitors. But apparently it's discriminatory in America. Well, he did it anyway. So far, in the first 3 months of 2026, $16.7 million was raised because of this fee. It's the National Park entry fee structure attacked by Democrats. Senator Alex Padilla of California led a December letter co-signed by Senator Schiff and others because the annual pass for foreigners is $250. It's $80 for American citizens. You know, the people that pay for the parks in the first place out of our tax dollars. An additional $100 also tacked on to non-resident visitors at the most trafficked parks. Padilla called it discriminatory. The Interior Department went ahead with the plan, of course. They've raised $17 million and counting. And so I think it's a good idea. Look, if you've got people coming here from foreign countries And they want to see the greatest stuff that you and I have paid for. And Teddy Roosevelt, made part of the bedrock of America. Pay the fee. $250 is not too much to ask. That's my opinion. Now, if you're a parent with a kid in sports, concussions are always in the back of your mind. Football, hockey, soccer, lacrosse, basketball, it doesn't matter. One bad hit can change everything. And that's why I want to tell you about NeuroGuard Plus. It is a padded mouthguard developed by Dr. Michael Hutchinson. It's designed to help prevent concussions before they happen, not just treat them afterwards. In real-world testing, athletes using NeuroGuard Plus suffered concussions just 0.26% of the time, an incredible number, and there's another benefit parents love. This mouthguard can actually improve strength and speed by up to 16%. That means you can lift more weights, jump higher, run faster, without changing your training. And it isn't hype. Michigan State studied it, Wayne State studied it, and they have tested and certified the results of the NeuroGuard Plus. So your kid's going to play hard and protect what matters most, their brain. Go to NeuroGuardPlus.com. NeuroGuardPlus.com. Use the promo code Gruber. You're going to save 10% today. Keep your head in the game. NeuroGuard Plus. Again, it's NeuroGuardPlus.com. This thing works. My kids worn it for years in football. No concussions.
There's a new
None.
city that never sleeps.
All right, let's get back into it now. Glad to have you here for the conversation as we continue down this road on a big Tuesday. It's not Wednesday. Gee, I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? Yes, I am. Joining me is State Representative Bill Schuette. He represents the 95th District in Michigan's House of Representatives, serves as the chair of the House Rules Committee. Bill, nice to see you again.
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me on the show. Always appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and your audience.
Well, I appreciate you being here. You say this quite simply: we cannot allow activist attorney general to undermine our economy by, crazy lawsuits and joining crazy lawsuits. I think that's what you're getting at here, Bill. Do tell.
Yeah, what we've seen with Attorney General Dana Nessel is not only her costing taxpayer dollars with her entering these frivolous, losing lawsuits on behalf of liberal causes that ultimately fail in court time after time. We also see her punishing Michigan businesses by trying to subject them to just even more needless and burdensome regulation that is really going to make your mom and pop small business make life so much more difficult for them. And that's something we need to restrict the Attorney General from being able to do in our court system.
And one of the things she's trying to do is to narrow this protection for businesses that are already being regulated by federal or state agencies. Apparently, she thinks that more lawyers should be able to sue more businesses more often. That's what I get out of that. I mean, look, if you're in business for yourself, like I am, you're already a target. Every business is a target because of the urge to litigate in America. And people think they've won the lottery by being able to sue a company into oblivion. And we need to protect businesses, some, not completely. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, Steve. And right now, Michigan already is a tough enough state to do business. That's why and Steve, both of us are competitive guys, and we hate to see Michigan losing to Ohio, of all states, as a place of economic growth. But that's because Michigan is a tough place to do business. And Dana Nessel wants to make it even worse. If you're a plumber or an electrician, you're already regulated by the state in your practice of the work that you're in. But Dana Nessel now wants to make it so you can be sued as a plumber because someone slipped and fell outside of their own home, and that's just a ridiculous policy that Dana Nessel is trying to do on her way out the door to help the trial attorneys.
Yeah, and the trial attorneys need more help in America. I mean, I drive down the highway here in Michigan, Bill, and I see Morgan & Morgan, the world's biggest law firm, advertising on billboard after billboard. I see this all over, and I see, of course, 1-800-CALL-SAM. I think that the attorneys are doing just fine from what I can tell. Maybe I'm missing something.
No, I think they're doing just fine, especially in Michigan. And, national groups have labeled Michigan a judicial hellhole because of just how litigious our work environment is in Michigan. You can be sued for just about everything in the state of Michigan, and Dana Nessel wants to make it even worse. And what does that really mean? That means your mom and pop small businesses, your people working in the skilled trades, are going to be hit by even more legal costs. And, Steve, if you're a Fortune 500 company, you have your own team of attorneys and you can go to battle with, these different lawsuits. But, my grocery store down the street that's independently owned, they don't have a team of attorneys. Most of your small businesses can't afford the type of legal costs that are going to be thrust on them if Dana Nessel has her way.
Yeah. So you talk about how Michigan, we have a lot of challenges here when it comes to income tax, for example, compared to other states. And it's not just Ohio eating our lunch, Bill. Indiana's doing the same thing. So's Kentucky. So's Tennessee. Every state in our region just about, except maybe Illinois, because they might actually be worse. They're all really eating our lunch. We're not getting the investment into Michigan that we deserve, that we have the workforce to take care of. And this is just another part of the problem, isn't it?
Well, you're absolutely right. And yet, Illinois is hardly going to be the, state we want to compete with. We want to be beating Ohio. We want to be beating Indiana. We don't want to hang the banner of second worst state in the Great Lakes region. That's not a triumph that anyone should be proud of. And the key problem in Michigan is that it's too hard to do business. It's too hard to start a family. It's too expensive, and it's because of the different types of regulations and government policies that are put on your small business owner. And it's making our state flat out not competitive, and that's why we're losing.
So the solution then is to vote properly in November, get a new attorney general into that position, correct?
No, you're exactly right, and I think what you have with Doug Lloyd, who's currently the Eaton County prosecutor and the Republican nominee for Attorney General. He's a guy who understands that his job is to protect Michigan families and to treat law fairly, not use lawsuits against Michigan families and against Michigan businesses and towards political aims.
What else can we do in Michigan? Here's something else that just is mind-boggling to me. The new budget proposed by the governor, $88 billion. $88 billion. It's bigger than North Carolina by about $30 billion. It's bigger than Georgia by about $30 billion. Those are both states that are pretty equal in size to Michigan. And it's about $30 billion more than Pennsylvania, a state that's bigger than we are. What do we spend all our money on, Bill? Because I'm a little confused as a taxpayer. They raised my income tax, only state in America to do that in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And they keep wanting more. What's it for?
It's unbelievable, Steve. Yeah, and you're exactly right. Michigan is a state that is falling behind because the Democrats in Lansing have been spending your own taxpayer dollars like it's monopoly money. But that money comes from somewhere, and it comes out of the pocketbooks of Michigan families and out of our small businesses. And what we have to do is we have to make sure that we take a fine tooth comb through every dollar that the government is spending and saying, is this really a good investment of taxpayer dollars? And we need to be good stewards of what's been entrusted to us by the people of the state of Michigan. And Steve, when I came into the legislature, we've talked about this. We had a $9 billion surplus. That's a lot of money. And now we're looking at about $1 billion shortfall. And the only way you get in that position is because government was spending like drunken sailors. And what you do after that is not extend the line on your credit. You have to look at, let's get down to brass tacks, figure out how we tighten our belts like Michigan families have to do across our state.
Yeah. We really need to get our act together around here, Bill, in a variety of ways. Right to work would be a nice thing to have back in this state, too. The only state to ever get rid of right to work is Michigan. That's another issue, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at, the cost of everything on our shelves is influenced by, the cost of the inputs further up a supply chain. And the cost of labor has gone up dramatically for Michigan families because we eliminated right to work. And that limits the ability and the freedom of people in the workplace and drives up costs on everyone in our state. And again, Michigan is losing because of the intentionally bad policy decisions made by Michigan Democrats.
Yeah. Bill Schuette, always a good conversation. Thank you for being here today. Let's make Michigan better. Should we do that together?
Yeah. Sounds like a plan, Steve. Always appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciated. I mean, they raised the budget to a point that's, baffling, honestly. It's baffling. To spend all this money on what? To make my roads better? Yeah, I've heard that one. There is a better plan in place from the Republicans, but good Lord. To make the economy better? I've heard that one. To make it more business friendly? Time to maybe change out what we've got in Lansing. Just a thought. Maybe it's time for a different idea or two. What do you think? You can always send me that email, stevegruber.com. stevegruber.com. I'll be right back. All right, he's coming in hot. Coming in hot. I don't know where we're going at this point, but I know that Ivy's coming into the program. Always a pleasure. Good morning.
Good morning. Who's coming in hot? What are you talking about?
I'm coming in hot.
Oh, okay, sweet. Let's do it.
All right.
Not in your Ford.
Right.
What?
You know, I would like to quickly continue that conversation. So for people who didn't hear earlier, Steve and I were talking about Ford filing some patents, which essentially are limiting your ability sometimes to drive a vehicle depending on certain situations.
Yep.
And also collecting data using facial recognition, using lip reading. And there's also live feeds of the cameras inside your vehicle.
Live feeds.
Showing drivers on their phones.
Oh, will it shut you down for that?
Well, this is all being sold to insurance companies, essentially making driving
Of course it is.
Making driving safer, when I think there's going to be a lot of unintended consequences of utilizing this technology.
Yeah, so here it is. AI, you've got these cameras around you. And we played a video earlier showing a guy showing the issue. If he had a chainsaw, he's in the woods, he's in his pickup truck, he has an emergency, he hurts himself, he has to get to the hospital, he's wild-eyed, his pupils are, dilated, whatever. Truck won't go into gear, right? So there's problem one. Here's problem two. Here's AI explaining the AI problem with what you're talking about. Listen to this.
You're driving your family home after church on a Sunday afternoon. Kids laughing in the backseat.
When suddenly your truck shuts off, dead in the middle of nowhere. Why? Because the government forced AI cameras into every new car by 2027. Congress passed this law back in 2021. Now every new car has these AI cameras watching you. No way to turn it off, no one to call, you're just stuck. Picture your wife and kids stranded in the dark. No one to call, no override. This isn't about safety, it's about control. Big Brother is moving from your phone into your truck. Freedom dies one mandate at a time.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's what you talked about. Okay, so you're driving down the road. I'm having a heart attack. You used this example earlier.
Right.
And you're in a panic, so you're like, I've got to get there. Or you're speeding because you want to get to the hospital.
Right.
Well, you're going
Maybe
too fast.
Maybe your wife is about to deliver a new baby, and you have to get to the hospital quickly. Or whatever the case may be, if you're having a heart attack. And all of a sudden, you're seen as being unstable enough to drive.
Right.
And then it automatically pulls you over and stops the vehicle.
That's what it does. It slows the vehicle down. It's not unlike the diesel emissions fluid, right? When the diesel vehicle gets low on DEF, your vehicle starts to slow down, doesn't run right, and then it won't run at all. This is the same thing. It'll throttle you down and have you pull over, because AI, which has no way to discern what's actually happening necessarily, will take control of your vehicle. Look, I'm never buying a vehicle that has this. We've talked about this for the last couple of years. I said I will never buy a vehicle that has this technology on it. I don't want the God switch.
Well, the question is, what kind of vehicle can you drive that isn't going to have this sort of technology in it in the future?
Used.
Well, okay, fair. But at some point, there's going to be no vehicles available that don't have this technology. You should be able to opt out of this technology.
I will be the guy driving the 1972 Dodge Dart with a straight six.
We actually have a vehicle that's like an old school Jeep that doesn't have any of the technology in it, no chips, no computers, none of that.
Right.
Because the reality is, if something happens, all of a sudden none of our vehicles could work, and then what do? I just think that this is going down. What is it? The road, going down the road with good consequence, or you're going down the road with good intentions, but bad consequences come out of it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say there.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think that's what you're trying to say. Yeah.
Correct. Thank you.
Look, AI can be, and we talk about, how can you not? AI is in your phone. It's in the cameras we're looking at. It's in your car. It's everywhere. The car is already monitoring you.
Right.
You already know that. All these cars, Toyota especially,
your
guilty.
phones are monitoring you too.
Everything is.
And we have freely given up our privacy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we don't even realize it. As you go in and you agree to all these Apple, you go down the list, you get a new phone and you agree, you never read all the fine details. And you're giving up all of this data to company that they're selling to third-party companies to then track you, to see how you shop, what you shop for, so then ads can be placed on anything that you're watching or consuming. And this is also now going to be put into our vehicles, and I just think that's a very dangerous place to be, because
I'm gonna say
your vehicle cannot determine what's happening. And if I'm panicked, I can still drive. You know, if I've cut my leg with a chainsaw and I need to get to the hospital because I'm bleeding, you know, and I have it in a situation where I can safely drive, I don't think that that's smart. But I want to go back to something else you were talking about earlier, and something that I think we need to think about as, you know, the world is becoming more and more polarized, and people are becoming, you know, violent, politically violent. And as we've seen over the weekend with this guy who just ran through security, you know, you didn't think about, and I didn't think about this, what about all of the people who could have been on the red carpet at that time, which was just right next to these scanners? This guy could have easily opened fire on people standing on the red carpet getting into the event. And you wonder, and I wonder if...
Well, somebody mentioned that. What if he had come down an hour earlier when that lobby was packed?
Right, exactly.
Okay, I've been to this event, right? So you're in that lobby, but you have to go downstairs by way of escalators to get into the main ballroom. He was a long way from the ballroom, but nobody checked the hotel.
Well,
what if he had a bomb in a backpack?
Right, exactly.
Then what?
And this is why it's so important for that ballroom that Trump wants to build and courts keep blocking, because then those types of events can happen in that place. There isn't a location in D.C. that's large enough to house these huge events that, you know, dignitaries want to hold, or, you know, the press wants to hold, whatever the case may be.
Well, and I'll leave you with this point, because I heard some people making this point yesterday. Every time they go to this hotel, they've never changed their security protocol. And if you have a ballroom, it's always 100% protected. It's got bulletproof glass. It's bomb-proof. It's the most secure building in the world.
Right.
And you put the ballroom on it, and therefore you are protected 100% of the time. I got to leave it there. But I mean, this is a no-brainer. Plus, it's being paid for with private money. There's no taxpayer money being spent here at all.
That's right.
At all.
That's right.
Love you, Ivy.
I love you too.
All right, got to leave it there. Too bad. I'll be right back.
Let me know when you're ready.
All right, Anthony, I want you to weigh in on this the vehicle getting controlled by the government, I call it the God switch, because if they can reach out of the sky, basically, and shut your vehicle down and control you, what do you think of that? You're a younger person. You like all this technology.
No, I don't. I like old cars.
It's a fair point you make. Does the S10 have that?
Have what?
Any of that,
No.
Cameras looking at you?
No.
Yeah. Shutting your car off when you're driving down the road?
No.
No.
I can barely start it myself or shut it off myself.
Yeah, it is infuriating. I mean, America, the freedom of America was to get on Route 66, right? And wind's in your hair, and you're driving with in Michigan, you don't see this much anymore, but when you were young in Michigan, when I was young in Michigan, it's summertime, and not everybody had, air conditioning in their vehicles, and you'd see these guys driving around, no shirt on in the pickup truck, stuck to the vinyl seat, whatever. But that's freedom. Ivy asked this earlier. Are we still the land of the free? When they keep adding rules like this. And Massachusetts, if you missed it earlier, has this plan to tell you how much gas you can use in whatever period of time. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's a month, whatever. And they're putting together a commission to determine who gets to drive how far and how often. It's because of climate change, to save the planet. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. That's why Barack Obama wanted gas to be $10 a gallon. You remember that? Barack Obama said it can be $10 a gallon. People will drive less. It'll save the planet. You want $10 gas? I don't. It's remarkable how far they will go to try to take control of you and your life. All right. We will not sit quietly for that. I'll guarantee you. I'm just used vehicles only. Fight the good fight. Keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is Daybreak with Steve and Ivy. Can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Until then.
Watch out, folks.